Hello, my friend, and welcome back to this VitalityWerks video on what I was like, which is the first of 3 videos that make up my VitalityWerks Bootcamp series. And my name again is Kyle Payne, and I founded this community with the sole purpose of helping people just like you, were willing to go to new lengths to solve their ego's thinking problem. And before I get into what I was like, let me answer a question that you might be pondering at this point, and that is, why should I even care to listen to what you have to say over the next 3 videos, right? Well, ever since I was a little kid, I have been a student of the mind. And over the years, I have focused on the ego and the thinking problem that results when faced with fear. And with this education and focus, I've gone on to help numerous people with identifying their ego's thinking problem as the source to any of the specific problems they may have been facing, and guiding them through a solution, which is really the practice of certain spiritual principles into our daily affairs. And that solution has been used literally by millions of people who are facing an infinite number of unique problems. So there's no reason to think that this couldn't work for you too. I know this to be true because it's worked for me. So over the course of the next 3 videos that make up my VitalityWerks Bootcamp series, I will share with you what I was like before I applied the solution in all my daily affairs, which is the topic for today's video. And in my second part, I will be discussing what happened that caused me to say, finally, enough is enough and this has to stop, which became my bottom and ultimately my turning point in my life. And lastly, in the third and final part of this series, I will share how this solution, once I applied it through my actions, has led me to finding and serving my definitive purpose in life, which is being of service to others like you, who, like you, are seeking a solution to their ego's thinking problem. And as we go through this journey together through these next 3 videos, I encourage you to focus on how our stories may be similar versus how they might be different in order for you to get the most out of this experience. Even if you only find a couple things that are similar to our stories, if you make note of them, they could be extremely helpful to you. So as you watch this video, or any video I do for that matter, I encourage you again to look for 2 or 3 things you can relate to and make a note of them. I also hope that you keep an open mind to a new experience. And at the end of this series, not only will I give you complete access to my spiritual principle training series, teaching you the principles that became my solution to my ego's thinking problem at no cost to you, but I also make you a special one-time offer to help you jumpstart being of service to others if, at the end of this bootcamp series, you are willing to take certain actions. You will be amazed when you see what I have already put together for you to help you get started, because that is part of me serving my definitive purpose in life. So at this point, you may be wondering what you have to give to receive complete access to my Spiritual Principle Training Series. Well, the only requirement to receive this solution is a desire to solve your ego's thinking problem. And as a result of that desire, you are willing to go to new lengths to help others who are suffering from their ego's thinking problem. The good news is, if you are here hearing my voice, watching this video, then you have a desire to solve your ego's thinking problem, because why else would you be here, right? So congratulations and welcome aboard. And beyond that, there is no other requirements, fees, or dues for membership in our VitalityWerks community. However, it is important to note that membership alone will not automatically apply the solution for you. It is up to you to take action asked of you within this community, including carrying this message to those who, like you, are suffering from their ego's thinking problem, and like you have the desire to solve this problem. And make no mistake, this action of carrying this message to others who are suffering from their ego's thinking problem is necessary for this solution to work for you as has worked for me and many people before us. I wish there was a softer and easier way, but those softer and easier ways are ways of the ego, and therefore will not solve the ego's thinking problem. Now, I know that this may raise some additional questions like, how will I carry this message? Where will I find people seeking this solution? Or why is this even necessary? And my response to you is that All those questions will be answered through this series of videos, so please be patient. The answers are coming. So what was I like then before applying this solution through my actions? Well, I was really run by my ego's need for self-preservation above all else. And my ego's need for self-preservation was really driven by my fear that I would fail to preserve my life. At some point, I would make a disastrous mistake. So I was a nervous wreck, constantly second-guessing myself. You might be wondering, though, how was I run by my ego's need for survival? Well, that's simple. Every decision I made was made to achieve my ego's ultimate end goal, which was to be validated as good by the outside world that I was trying to emulate. That's why I was such a nervous wreck all the time. I was constantly on the guard trying to meet these expectations, because then from my ego's perspective, that would mean I would survive if I met those expectations. So the way that I served my ego's need was through constantly comparing myself to my peers with the hopes that I would compare favorably, and I would make tweaks and changes if I didn't. So this is my way of trying to ensure the right outcome so my ego could relax from fear, uncertainty, and doubt that I carried with me at all times. Here are just a few examples of how I served my ego's need for survival. I served my ego's need for survival through the friends I associated with, because they represented the ideal world I wanted to be a part of and be validated by. Because if I could just get their validation, I could feel relief from that voice in my head that was constantly questioning myself and what I was doing at all times. So I literally would go around all the time when I was around my friends thinking, am I meeting their expectations? Am I saying the right thing in the right way to make them laugh? What could I say to make them laugh? What could I say to make them validate me as actually not only hanging out with them, but being one of them, being part of their group? I was constantly doing this, and I had a lot of friends. It's not like I was, struggling to meet people. I constantly was around people that I was constantly having this dialogue in my head, trying to figure out if I was, meeting expectations. Was I being as cool as them? Was I being as witty and sharp in my tongue as they were? I also served my ego's need for self-preservation by comparing my physical image. So everything from head to toe, from the clothes I wore, to the styles I had, to the hairstyle I had, which obviously now I don't have an issue with worrying about that right now, I'm comparing that to the people around me. That again had that physical image that I was looking for, that I wanted to emulate, because in my ego's mind, if I looked like them, then naturally I would be liked by them. And that would be validating for me, and once again, quiet that voice, that skeptic voice inside my own head that was constantly asking myself the question, am I desirable enough to attract the people I want to emulate? So, for my friends that I interacted with, I would constantly compare myself, how I looked to them. Was I had the same kind of image that was getting them, the interest in the girls that I wanted to be attracted to me? Was I having the same image that would give me the sense that I was going to stay popular and stay on par with them, so I didn't fall out of favor? I mean, these are crazy, stupid stuff that even at the time I kind of knew was crazy, but I couldn't help but having this stuff run through my head, and it just was a never-ending record. It constantly was going over and over and over again. And every time I was around someone, I was constantly, even without even realizing it, sizing myself up to see if I looked as cool or as hip or whatever, as trendy as they did. And if I did, would that lead me to getting the results I wanted, with them liking me and attracting the girls that I was interested in? And if not, what did I need to do to change the way I looked in order to meet those expectations? So my physical appearance was a constant thing that was obsessing over in everything I was thinking about in interactions with people that I was hanging out with. And in addition to my physical appearance, I also tend to serve my ego's need for self-preservation by comparing how I performed and group settings, so sports or really any kind of group setting with peers involved. For example, every decision I made in sports was really driven by the end result that I would get satisfaction from, which was often had nothing to do with serving the purpose of the team first. So, for example, when I was in sports, I was constantly thinking about how I could position myself to get in a spot where I could win the game, or people would have to rely on me, or my personal contributions, my statistics to helping statistics in playing that sport. Not how can I be of service to help my fellow teammate do better, not how can I contribute to team effort. It was always what I contributed, and that was always more important than what anyone else contributed, for me to feel good about myself, to feel like they validated me as a star and validated me someone that they wanted to keep on the team and I wouldn't be abandoned. And therefore I would stay on the team and survive, at least in my ego's mindset, right? So, though, that was, ways in which I was validated by my ego, and I also I also served my ego's purpose to validate my sense of survival through the grades I got in school. Because if I got good grades, then I was smart. And if I was smart, I would make it. Because if smart people make it, the smart people don't end up in cardboard boxes dying of heart attacks in their 20s or 30s. It just doesn't happen to smart people. So if I could be as smart as those other smart people, get the same grades as they got, then I would survive. So every decision I made as it related to school and the work I did had nothing to do with doing the work with the hopes of learning how to think or, exercise my brain in a way that I could utilize it for the good of others. It was all about how can I put in enough work to get the right grades so I can compare myself to people that I think are smart so I can be good and feel safe. Because if I can get a 97% when someone smart gets a 96%, then I'm golden. And that's all that mattered. That's all that mattered, not the process, not anything that would have actually been meaningful. Just my means to an end of self-preservation was the only thing that actually mattered. And like other areas, this was a tangible measurement of how good I was, and therefore was easy to compare myself to my peers because we had an actual benchmark built into it. What grade did you get? What percentage did you get? So what I was like before the solution of these spiritual principles I apply in my daily life was I was someone who never felt good. I never felt good unless I compared favorably to the people that I thought were cool and that I wanted to emulate in order to ensure that I would survive. And every conscious thought, again, was devoted to the pursuit of comparing favorably to convince my ego that I would survive. None of my intentions were driven by the desire to be of service to others ahead of my selfish needs for self-preservation. So that is how I spent my days. Literally, that's what I did day in and day out, obsessing over how I compared with the world I wanted to emulate. And the worst part is, if I compared well, I was quick to realize that newer and higher expectations that I would go on to compare myself to in order to keep the fear, uncertainty, and doubt at bay. So there never was an end in sight. So have you ever obsessed over, like I've just described, how you compare to others around you? Have you ever felt like you weren't good enough when you made those comparisons at some point or another? Because that's constantly what I was doing. And this constant fear led to an ever-increasing need for more validation. Ironically, the more I wasn't validated, the more I needed to validate myself, because the closer I was getting to this fear that I might actually fail and not live. So the irony is, the more my ego tried to validate myself, the more I would fail in meeting those expectations, and therefore I seemed to only convince myself that I wasn't worthy of the friends I had, that I wasn't worthy of the image I projected, and I wasn't worthy of the credit I received for the performances I gave. So I walked around with that in my head too all the time, that I wasn't worthy enough of even the image that I put out there. So as things got worse as they did, my ego naturally look to recruit some more effective solutions, some help to solve and alleviate this pain I was feeling from this constant fear, uncertainty, and doubt that was being created by these comparisons to the world around me. And it came up with solutions like participating in sports, fraternities, really any other kind of group that specifically provided a built-in network of friends with the sole purpose of validating me as good enough because they let me in their group. If I was let in their group, then it must mean that I was good enough, right? And solutions like alcohol that was a very effective solution for my ego, because the result of the alcohol was that for me, in my early years, when I drank, it was that it altered my mind so that, the voice in that was afraid of not surviving was finally quieted. So I was given temporary relief from the fear, uncertainty, and doubt in myself. And if this voice was quieted, then my perception of surviving became much better. Therefore, it was a solution. And another solution I found was chasing money, power, prestige via my career choices. And this is a solution because if I had enough money, then I could always buy my way out of feeling like I wasn't good enough, which gave me a sense of power. If I had enough power, then it would give me the false sense that I was in control and I could manipulate any situation so that I could feel good about myself no matter what happened, and my prospects of surviving would go up. If I was viewed as prestigious by my peers, it would give me this false sense that people who I was trying to emulate would always see me as on par or better than them, which meant to my ego that I would always be safe and good enough as long as I was revered as prestigious to the right people. So bottom line is that all these solutions gave me and my ego the sense that I was safe, but none of them could actually eliminate the fear that came with meeting those new expectations, which led to not feeling safe in the first place. And therefore, these solutions never solved my ego's thinking problem, which is the need for self-preservation. It was just a mirage that I fought hard to uphold. So what happened when I applied these solutions to meet my ego's needs? Well, with sports, fraternities, and other groups, when I couldn't perform to meet my ever-increasing level of expectations, all these groups did was remind me of how I wasn't good enough. Well, that wasn't what I was going for. And in the case of alcohol, gave me relief, but never did anything to solve the underlying problem. All it did was numb the pain, and when the alcohol wore off, there I was, with my fear, uncertainty, and doubt, often in larger doses than what I began with. So clearly that wasn't a solution that was going to work. And then my solution to pursue money, power, and prestige through my career choices gave me the dreams of fulfilling my ego's underlying pursuit for safety and survival. But those dreams always turned into nightmares. What would you expect, though, from your ego when your ego is serving as your career advisor? As we've learned in What is the Ego's Thinking Problem video, our ego will never recommend a career path or any path based on what is right for you. Rather, it would only suggest a path that thinks will give the highest probability of survival. And as we've learned from that life experience, that path is often the path we should avoid. Hence why it will never give us the path that is right for us. It was my failure in this area of my life, in my pursuit of money, power, and prestige, via the career choices I made, that led me to finally saying enough is enough, and this has to stop. This brought me to my bottom, which would ultimately lead to the turning point of my life, and that is where we will pick up in part 2 of this 3-part series. In part 2, you will learn what my bottom looked like, and how it came about, and how it ultimately forced my ego to surrender so I could finally admit that enough is enough, and this has to stop so I could take a new path that without my ego stopping me. So to summarize what I was like before I applied this spiritual principles to all my daily affairs, well, I was someone who was driven by fear to serve my ego's need to survive. This turned me into a self-conscious person who was constantly comparing myself to others to feel good about myself. And that was what I was like, obsessing over this, constantly dealing with the fear, uncertainty, and doubt of meeting those expectations, moment to moment. So I hope from watching this video that you have found at least two or three similarities that tell you that we are not so different from one another. And that would mean that what has worked for me can work for you too. Also, at this point, you know that this solution is the practicing of certain spiritual principles that I mentioned. However, you probably are still not clear on what those spirit principles are or how it worked, and that is okay, because that will come in the later videos in this series. So I want to let you know that so you don't worry about that, and I encourage you to continue to be patient and keep coming back, because the answers are coming through these next couple videos. But before you go on to the rest of your day or evening, I have another favor to ask you, so together we can help the newcomer that has yet to see what you have just seen from watching this video. And if you are willing to do this, the good news is you will already be practicing the essence of the solution before you have even gone through the training videos. All this will make it easier for you to understand the solution later as you go through that process. So the help I would like to ask from you is to simply share your experience in the comment section on this blog as well as on my Facebook page, the 2 or 3 things that you could relate to, so someone else can see that this may be for them too. And that's it. And anything that you are willing to share, no matter how small or large or specific or general it might be, will be of help to others. And remember, what you share here could be the difference between someone finding the courage they need to pursue a new path in life. So do it for their sake. And with that being said, my friend, thank you so much for tuning in. And until the next time, make it a great day for yourself, so you can make it a great day for someone else out there that might need your help. Thanks so much, my friend, and talk to you soon.